It's Sunday, October 6th, 2024, and we are 29 days away from the election. Welcome to today's Make It Make Sense mini episode. I'm Grant Herms. Today in the show, Trump goes back to Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was nearly killed 12 weeks ago. So Trump went back to the exact same spot he was in on July 13th and spoke to a pretty large crowd. The estimate was about 20,000 people or so rivaling most of Trump's largest rallies this election cycle. He took the stage after several hours of people waiting and listening to other speakers like his son Eric and his daughter-in-law Laura Trump, who is also the co-chair of the Republican National Party, and a pretty rocky rendition of God Bless the USA from Lee Greenwood. But when Trump did get on the podium, this time from behind bulletproof glass, turning and pointing to the rooftop where the shooter was back in July, he said this.
Lee, thank you very much, really, and thank you, a very big thank you to Pennsylvania. We love Pennsylvania. And as I was saying,
so clearly he really wanted it to seem like he was just picking up where he left off after the shooting. Now, Trump also talked about the other victims in that shooting, including Corey Coupatorre, the firefighter who was killed and whose family was in the audience. He talked about the assassination attempt, almost like he was honoring a battlefield or something like 9/11. Take a listen.
Forever after, all who have visited this hallowed place will remember what happened here, and they will know of the character and courage that so many incredible American patriots have showed and know, and they know it at a level never seen before, probably. First, I want to thank the men and women of the U.S. Secret Service who threw their bodies on top of mine.
And then at 6:11, down to the minute, Trump asked for a moment of silence.
At this time, it is 6:11, 12 weeks to the minute that the shooting began. I would like to ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence.
Okay, so that wasn't exactly a moment of silence. It was more like a second and a half before those bells started, and then after the bells was a pretty bombastic version of Ave Maria sung by an opera singer. And then Trump continued trying to strike this reverent, empathetic, maybe even navel-gazy kind of a tone. It's not something he's been particularly good at in the past, and was honestly kind of hard to tell if being back there was washing over him in a way, because reportedly and understandably, being shot at and nearly killed left him shaken, or if he just didn't know how to meet the moment in the right way. But at any rate, he was trying to follow the prompter because somebody wrote what I think on paper was probably a pretty nice speech, but then he tried to go off prompter in the way that he does, and the whole thing just came across as a little mottled and frankly a little low energy. So after he got through that section of the speech, there was also a long stretch in which somebody in the crowd had a medical incident, and it took quite a long time for EMTs to get there. This has been a recurring theme at rallies, not just at Trump rallies, but also rallies across the board. I don't really know what's happening with that. Maybe it's just that these rallies are taking a long time and people have been standing for a long time. It is this interesting thing that I don't remember happening really often in rallies in years past. Anyway, Trump did essentially pick up where he left off, and not just in his speech in July, but at every speech he's given since then. So instead of striking a tone of unity, it was essentially the same speech that he's been giving, focusing on Biden dropping out of the race, talking about high crime rates, even though they are basically near where they were pre-pandemic and they've been falling, talking about how the economy under him was the greatest in American history, which also isn't true. Yes, unemployment was low under Trump, but actual growth, investment, and wages, even factoring out COVID, are considered to be mediocre compared to past presidents. He, of course, talked about migrants being sent to the U.S. from prisons or jails, which there's no evidence of that. Countries aren't releasing prisoners to be sent to the U.S. He also said that Biden and Harris had allowed 13,000 murderers to be released into the U.S., which also isn't true. Those numbers refer to immigrants who came over the administrations of several presidents, including his own. And now there are some other things too, but I want to talk about a few really interesting moments, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit in this speech. These aren't in chronological order. The first was Trump continued to say that the last election was rigged and stolen from him, and used the theme of the rally to call voters to action, which the theme was the words that he shouted just after he'd been shot.
And if we win Pennsylvania, we will win the whole thing. The whole thing will be won. So for the sake of our families, for the sake of our children, we will keep on going. And as the expression goes, I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to say it, to be honest with you, but I'm going to say it because a lot of people do say it. We will fight, fight, fight. We're going to fight for our country. We're going to fight for our country. And together we will save this country, we will restore the republic, and America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer and greater, and more united than ever before. Our country will be united. You'll watch, you'll watch.
So that is the kind of language I was talking about in Friday's full episode, telling supporters that the election was actively stolen, will be actively stolen this time around, and then telling them to fight for it. At one point, he also said Democrats were going to drop bombs, and I'm pretty sure he meant like bombshell news stories were going to come out that were planted by Democrats, which like isn't a thing, but it's the last part that I want to talk about here.
Think of it, 1 month from today, 1 month. We got to get there. We got to get there. They'll drop all sorts of bombs. They'll be hitting you, JD. They'll be hitting me. These people, they'll hit and hit. But I think we've almost become immune to it, haven't we? We've become immune to it. You got a little dose of it, a couple of little doses. No, that's the only way. That's the only way they can even think about winning, with open borders.
So those couple doses that he was talking about, given the context of everything he was saying and where he was, were the assassination attempt in Butler and the would-be assassination attempt in West Palm Beach, Florida. And just a few minutes before that, he suggested that Democrats were behind those attempts. Here.
We have a lot of them. Over the past 8 years, those who want to stop us from achieving this future have slandered me, impeached me, indicted me, tried to throw me off the ballot, and who knows, maybe even tried to kill me. But I've never stopped fighting for you, and I never will.
So that's a pretty big accusation. And in a moment when a lot of candidates for office could have used this speech to turn the temperature down, Trump decided not to. There were a couple other big parts of the rally, namely when Elon Musk got on stage. So Musk has endorsed Trump, though it's unclear if he's donated any money to the Trump campaign that could tip the scales of this race yet. He could just be waiting, to drop a surprise couple $1 billion on Trump. Who knows? But what he did do was get on stage dressed in a shirt that said Occupy Mars and a hat that said Dark MAGA, which is a cryptocurrency, and naturally the stock soared when Elon took the mic. Here's what he had to say.
And free speech is the bedrock of democracy. And if people don't know what's going on, if they don't know the truth, how can you make an informed vote? You must have free speech in order to have democracy. That's why it's the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment is there to ensure that we have the First Amendment. President Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. He must win to preserve democracy in America. Yes. This is a must-win situation. Must win. So I have one ask for everyone in the audience, everyone who watches this video, everyone in the live stream. There's one request. It's very important. Register to vote. Okay? and get everyone you know and everyone you don't know, drag them to register to vote. There's only 2 days left to register to vote in Georgia and Arizona. 48 hours. Like, text people now. Now. And then make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election. That's my prediction. Nothing's more important. Nothing's more important.
So since Musk bought Twitter, which is now X, he's been really a crusader for this idea that conservatives are being censored left and right. I think it's ironic that a dude who bought a $44 billion social media company thinks he's being censored, and also somebody who said that from behind the microphone during a nationally televised rally in the race for United States president. But I digress. After Musk got off stage, there was one more moment. Trump took aim at the recovery for Hurricane Helene. Now, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories swirling, no pun intended, around the hurricane and the recovery. I'm going to go into that in a mini little later this week because I'm still kind of compiling all these things together. But one of the things Trump talked about was that he was the person who got Musk's satellite system known as Starlink to be redirected and deployed over western North Carolina and parts of the Southeast and Appalachia. That's not what happened, according to the White House and the State Department and FEMA. They said that they already had orders in place for Elon Musk. Musk just sort of did this thing to muddy the waters a little bit, or Trump just might flat out be lying. And then the other thing is that Trump continued to say that Harris was bragging about FEMA giving only $750 to people in western North Carolina and parts that were affected by Hurricane Helene. And while that dollar amount is true, it was just the immediate relief funding. Now, there were some other things there too, and like I said, I'm going to go into that in a different mini this week, but suffice to say, Trump is using the recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene to whip up anger at the Biden-Harris administration over the response to Hurricane Helene when people were already suspicious that a hurricane hit places that were going to largely vote for Trump. Again, I know that doesn't make any sense. Why they would have suspicion about that, I'm going to go into that later this week. Okay. That is it for today's MIMS Mini. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate and review on whatever podcast app you're listening to this on. Like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps get this thing out and sort of game the algorithm online a little bit. Also, like and subscribe to the Make It Make Sense Substack, where I've got that full extended interview with my guest from Friday's full episode, Tina Barton, up right now. And as always, share the show on social media. It's MIMS News Pod. That's MIMS News Pod, all one word on every platform. I am at Grant Herms on X and at Grant Herms TV on everything else. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm Grant Herms, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.